Donald Trump once asked black Americans, I'm going to quote, excuse the language, "What the hell do you have to lose from a Trump presidency?" And sadly, we all know too well, when he was president, Donald Trump tried over and over to get rid of the Affordable Care Act and to take health care then from millions of black Americans. Year after year, he proposed cuts to Social Security and Medicare so that so many of our seniors would be deprived on what they rely on to live with dignity. And then he handpicked 3 members of the United States Supreme Court, the Court of Thurgood, with the intention that they would overturn Roe v. Wade, and as he intended, they did. And today, 1 in 3 women and more than half of black women of reproductive age live in a state with an abortion ban, a Trump abortion ban. And if he wins a second term, I promise you he's gonna go even further.
Oh God, you should match it, it's that kill. No white lighters till I fuck my 28th up. 1998, my family had that accurate. Oh, the legend.
Vice President Kamala Harris was born on October 20th, 1964 in Oakland, California. She had previously served in the United States Senate from 2017 to 2021 and as Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017. She has 2 immigrant parents, Mom Shyamala Gopalin and Dad Donald Harris. Her mother was a prominent cancer researcher before passing away in 2009.
My grandparents were phenomenal. We would go back to India like every other year. My grandfather fought for and was a defender of the freedom of India. When I was a young girl, being the eldest grandchild, my grandfather would take me on his morning walk. All of his buddies who also were great leaders, and they would talk about the importance of fighting for a democracy and the importance of fighting for civil rights and that people would be treated equally regardless of where they were born or the circumstances of their birth. Get out there and fight for the best of who we are. Those walks along the beach in India really planted something in my mind and created a commitment in me before I even realized it. It has led me to where I am today.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my true distinct pleasure to introduce the first senator of Indian American heritage in the history of U.S. Senate.
Gopalin was born in India and came to the United States to get her PhD from the University of California, Berkeley. Donald Harris, her father, was born in Jamaica but immigrated to the United States for a graduate degree, eventually becoming a professor of economics at Stanford University. One important part of Kamala Harris is her multiracial identity. For college, she attended the Howard University, one of the most prestigious HBCUs, and would become a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the first black sorority. While at Howard, she was on the debate team and graduated in 1986. Her influence of Black American culture throughout her collegiate career made her acceptable as vice president candidate. However, her political work as a district attorney would cause backlash and speculation into if she was actually anti-black or simply putting away criminals. So, after earning an undergraduate degree from Howard University and a law degree from the University of California, Kamala Harris worked as a deputy district attorney from 1990 through 1998 in Oakland, earning a reputation for toughness as she prosecuted cases of gang violence, drug trafficking, and sexual abuse. In her book, The Truths We Told, she discusses how she met with community members and gathered volunteers in San Francisco while running to become district attorney. She says, a group of teenage graffiti artists decorated the back wall of campaign headquarters, spray painting justice in giant letters. Headquarters buzzed with volunteers, some calling voters, some sitting together around a table stuffing envelopes, others picking up clipboards, so they could go door to door talking to people in the community about what we were trying to do. She then stated she went to a local supermarket and informed people personally about who she is. It was a Saturday morning, the equivalent of rush hour in the grocery aisles. I pulled into the parking lot, snuck my car into one of the few open spots, and grabbed the ironing board, the tape, and a campaign sign that looked slightly worn from being tossed in and out of the car. She put several stacks of the flyer on the ironing board, next to it a clipboard with a sign-up sheet, and she basically started networking with local people. She would say, "Hi, I'm Kamala Harris. I'm running for district attorney, and I hope to have your support." She said as a prosecutor, she spent a lot of time in the courtroom talking to people who've been called for jury duty from every part of the community, and that at her job, she was tasked to ask questions over a course of a few minutes, and she basically used that skill when campaigning. She said sometimes a mom would come out of the grocery store with a toddler in the shopping cart seat, and we find ourselves spending a good 20 minutes talking about her life and her struggles and her daughter's Halloween costume. Before we parted, I look her in the eye and say, "I hope I can have your support." It's amazing how often people would tell me that no one had ever asked them that directly before. I think that a lot of times when it comes to like canvassing, as people call it, feet on the ground, that does win a lot of people's heart, because I think a lot of times now things are so digital. And so if people can meet you and kind of get a feel for who you are, it can help your campaign. So Kamala Harris, along with like some other like campaigning strategies, happened to win that election. In her memoir, Harris notes that she faced questions from early on of how, as a Black woman, being part of the machine, putting more young men of color behind bars. In the same book, she writes that there must be serious consequences for people who commit serious crimes. And she expressed particular pride in her work, increasing sentences for Johns who paid to have sex with underage girls, and treating the crime like child sexual assault. She adds that she didn't feel the same way about less serious crimes for which mostly Black or brown or poor men were in prison. Harris writes, "They represented a living monument to lost potential, and I wanted to tear it down." So basically, Kamala Harris was saying that a lot of people would scrutinize her and like say, "Oh, you're a Black woman, but you're putting away these Black men." And so there was kind of this misconstruction early on that the Black men were like innocent or like wrongly imprisoned. But again, she says that these were serious crimes and these men were basically misusing children. And so she felt that again, for serious crimes, they should pay the time. So Harris rose through the ranks, becoming district attorney in 2004. In 2005, then San Francisco District Attorney Harris created a re-entry initiative called Back on Track, which aimed to reduce recidivism among certain low-level nonviolent drug offenders.
Debate is Kamala the cop.
I know.
Kamala the cop. She's going to put people in jail.
I know.
Because that's what she did in California.
When I started, it was during the height of the crack epidemic. And then there was also a lot of gang activity in Los Angeles and some other places. So the California legislature started passing these really draconian, tough gang enhancement laws. And which means that whatever the underlying offense was, if somebody was a member of a gang, the sentence would be even higher.
Oh.
So I'm sitting in my office one day, and I had just started a couple of years, and there were a group of people outside of my office talking about how they were going to prove a gang case. And because they were trying to figure out with this new law how to do that. And they said, well, they live in this neighborhood, dressed this way, listening to this music.
Oh.
So I stepped out of my office and I said, "Hey guys." "Hey Kamala," they said. "How you doing?" I said, "Great." I said, "You know, that neighborhood? Well, I got people who live in that neighborhood.
Wow.
That style of dress, well, you know, my family members dress that way. And
Wow.
and that music that you're talking about," and I'm going to date myself, Uncle Luke. I said, "That music you're talking about, I got a tape of that music in my car right now."
Wow.
And indeed, it was too short.
So they had to profile you right then.
Well, this is the point, isn't it?
Yep.
This is the point. This is the point.
That's little small things like that in different office places in America. We don't realize that we're really actually profiling people at the same time.
Right.
But,
and that people in power, their perception of things creates the reality for the other people, right? The way that they perceive the people in power, the folks that we're talking about, will have an impact on the way they treat those communities.
No,
right?
No question about it.
And so if you don't see that what is there right now is that you're looking at a high school honors student, if you don't see that, if you don't see Tamir Rice, if you don't see a Tatiana for being an auntie in her own home, it can have lethal consequences.
Why do we dismiss the fact that the job is a prosecutor and is designed to put people in jail? You know, but at the same time, what are we doing to bring people back into civilization, you know, with the programs that we have?
Because there will be prosecutors.
Right.
And so do you want somebody who's making those decisions who sees your son for the high school honor student he is? Do you want somebody who sees that young woman and knows her potential? Do you want somebody who understands that this is not that the war on drugs was a failure and criminalized a public health issue? Or do you want somebody who doesn't see that? I mean, I can't tell you how many mothers of homicide victims that I have hugged who came to me and said, I only want to talk to Kamala. And they would come to my office and they would cry. I'd have them come to sit on my couch, and they would cry and they'd say, nobody is taking the death of my son seriously. They think of him as a statistic. Had he died maybe by a car accident or cancer, maybe somebody would recognize and honor my grief. But nobody is taking it seriously. They're not investigating it. They're not looking for it. And I want justice for my son. And they would know that they could come to me, and I would see them as a grieving mother and not the mother of a statistic.
Right.
I created one of the first programs in the country. I was elected DA in 2003, which was long before I think the country started to understand that we need to actually reform the system, right, in the way that they do now. Back when I created Back on Track, which was a program about getting jobs and counseling to people who had been arrested for drugs, like literally they would have been felons for life. And I said, nope, we're going to dismiss the charges against them.
Over a 2-year period, the program reduced recidivism among its graduates to less than 10%. Back on Track was designated as a model for law enforcement by the U.S. Department of Justice. The Back on Track initiative yielded impressive results. Graduates of the program had their felony charges expunged, and less than 10% reoffended, according to the United States Department of Justice. This success rate highlights the effectiveness of Harris' approach in providing second chances and reducing recidivism. In 2010, she was nearly elected Attorney General of California, winning by a margin of less than 1%, thus becoming what some would call the first female and first African American to hold the post. After taking office the following year, she demonstrated political independence, rejecting, for example, pressure from the administration of President Barack Obama for her to settle a nationwide lawsuit against mortgage lenders for unfair practices. Instead, she pressed California's case, and in 2012 won a judgment 5 times higher than the original offer. Next is her refusal to defend Proposition 8, which banned same-sex marriage in the state, helped lead to it being overturned in 2013.
Excuse me, I've got the Attorney General on the phone right here. Is there someone who can speak with me? Are you the director? I am. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Real with the AFER. These are our plaintiffs.
Hi. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much.
I have the Attorney General on the phone right here.
Okay.
Take a call from her.
Sure.
Okay, Felix, here we go. I'm ready to phone.
Hi, this is Dean.
You must start the marriages immediately.
All right, I will take that as our notice and license them.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Have a good day and enjoy it. It's going to be fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Okay.
That was the clerk of Los Angeles, and I just told them that they have to start marriages right away.
So next up, I'll discuss Harris's book, Smart on Crime, During the Democratic primaries, many activists questioned those convictions, drawing on Harris's record as a prosecutor. Some of the strongest objections were to her anti-truancy program that she had implemented as the San Francisco District Attorney in 2008, threatening prosecution of people whose children chronically missed school, and to her support of a California law that made it possible to jail such parents for up to a year.
I'm the DA. I'm not anything other than the DA. So I have this big stick. I have the bully pulpit that comes with being the DA to talk about the issues as I see them relating to public safety. And on the issue of truancy, that role was the role of saying, I'm going to prosecute parents, and hopefully playing in position, doing that, and we did prosecute some cases, but far few, only about 20. And we have seen hundreds and hundreds of families. But playing in position there meant I am not suggesting or implying that I'm going to create the programs that are necessary to do the work of outreach to the parents and the children, but I'm going to, through the power of my position, convene people and bring them together to address this as an alarming issue. And I also should say that on this issue of elementary school truancy, so that we're clear, I'm not talking about kids who are playing hooky. I'm talking about children who are in first, second, third, fourth grade, literally missing 60, 70, 80 days of a 180-day school year. It's a very real issue.
In 2019, she expressed regret for the unintended consequences, namely the criminalization of parents. As San Francisco's district attorney, she was also tougher on drug crimes than her predecessor. In 2010, a judge lambasted Harris's office for systemically violating defendants' constitutional rights by hiding from defense attorneys the unreliability of a corrupt drug. Bazelon argued in The Times last year between 2004 and 2011, Harris fought tooth and nail to uphold wrongful convictions that had been secured through official misconducts by prosecutors. Even during the past decade, Harris held a number of positions that were typical for a prosecutor at the time, but are out of step with today's Democratic Party. In 2015, she opposed a bill that would have forced her office to appoint a special prosecutor to investigate police-involved shootings, and she supported the criminalization of marijuana until 2017.
Several individuals, to follow on your description about how you're handling the back on track first-time drug offenders, ask about your position on legalizing marijuana.
I'm not a proponent of that, but I know there are a lot of people who are. It's not my issue. But I will say that I am a strong supporter and believe strongly that we did the right thing when we passed 215 and legalized medical marijuana. I've personally known people who were very sick and only benefited from its use. So I think it was the right and compassionate thing to do when we did that.
This earned her the nickname Kamala, the cop. However, a closer look reveals that she oversaw around 1,956 felony convictions, but most did not result in jail time. The perception of her being excessively punitive doesn't align with the actual data. Kamala Harris would later have a shift in marijuana-related convictions. While Harris served as Attorney General, the number of marijuana-related admissions to prison dropped dramatically. According to California's Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, admissions fell from 817 in her first year to just 137. This trend demonstrates her commitment to seeking alternatives for nonviolent, low-level offenders. In her campaign for California Attorney General in 2010, she promised to enforce the death penalty and went on to appeal a federal court ruling from 2014 that the death penalty was unconstitutional.
We did it, Joe. You're going to be the next president of the United States.
Now I'm going to talk about some of Kamala's stances during the Biden-Harris administration. So first up is marijuana. The Biden administration has pardoned thousands of individuals with federal marijuana convictions. Harris has publicly stated that no one should have to go to jail for smoking weed. Her current stance aligns with progressive views on drug policy and decriminalization, reflecting her evolving perspective.
President Biden is pardoning thousands of people who were convicted of using or possessing marijuana on federal land. The president says criminal records for marijuana use and possession have imposed needless barriers to employment, housing, and educational opportunities. The president is also granting clemency to 11 people serving what the White House called disproportionately long sentences for nonviolent drug offenses.
In 2021, Harris co-introduced this legislation, demonstrating her commitment to federal-level criminal justice reform. Her efforts highlighted her dedication to addressing systemic issues in policy. So again, earlier, a lot of people were talking about how she was trying to insist on the death penalty not being appealed. And just a lot of people have discussed how they felt like she hasn't been really adamant about racial issues with policing, even calling her Kamala the cop. There's a lot of data that shows she has been for Black, brown, and low-income individuals. And then this specific George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021, I feel really reinforces the fact that Kamala is for criminal justice reform. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act of 2021 is a bill that addresses a wide range of policies and issues regarding policing practices and law enforcement accountability. It increases accountability for law enforcement misconduct, restricts the use of certain policing practices, enhances transparency and data collection, and establishes best practices and training requirements. The bill enhances existing enforcement mechanisms to remedy violations by law enforcement. Among other things, it does the following. It lowers the criminal intent standard from willful to knowing or reckless to convict a law enforcement officer for misconduct in a federal prosecution. It limits qualified immunity as a defense to liability in a private civil action against a law enforcement officer and grants administrative subpoena power to the Department of Justice in a pattern or practice investigations. It establishes a framework to prevent and remedy racial profiling by law enforcement at the federal, state, and local levels. The bill creates a national registry, the National Police Misconduct Registry, to compile data on complaints and records of police misconduct. So now I'm going to play some public opinion and then I'm going to conclude.
Hey, women who look like me, real quick. The misogynoir is going to be completely rampant this election cycle. It's going to be overwhelming, and it's not always going to come with a little label that says this is misogynoir, So maybe we could all take a beat and think about the way that we interact with this election because it involves a Black woman. Could we please take a beat and think about how what we say, even in jokes, is going to land differently this time? In 2016, when everybody went marching, well, not everybody, people who looked like me went marching as though we were the only ones who were going to be harmed by the policies that we saw coming down. And maybe we could take a lesson from 2016 and our white feminism to not do that again. It's little things even, people who are suggesting other celebrities run who are white women, Taylor Swift, whatever, that undermines the credibility of a Black woman who is running for president, who is very credentialed to do so. And I know people will say, well, it's just a joke. Obviously, I don't believe that. But the more we say that stuff, the more it underlines the fact that maybe we don't really support her because of who she is. And we would much rather see someone who looks like Taylor, who looks like us up there. And that is going to ruin us. I am not saying that you have to fall in love. I have things that I'm upset about that I don't agree with, but I know how politics works, and sometimes you have to take what you got. We got a wild opportunity here that no one thought was actually going to happen. And if we can fight Project 2025, then we have to do so. And to do that, it does mean reflecting on our inner misogynoir, our inner, hatred of Black women in order to achieve that. Our microaggressions, our macroaggressions, look at them honestly in the memes we repost, everything like that. Like, I've seen tweets and stuff where it's like, oh, Hillary must be so mad right now. And it's like, when you drill down to that, when you really drill down to that for a second, what are we saying? Are we saying, oh, this white woman who didn't win must be so mad that this black woman has a real chance to be president? What are we doing, y'all? What are we doing? Anyway, I'm sure you all say that I'm a Fed now, so excited for that.
You know, people ask every day, what have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris really done for us? You got a minute? 'Cause I got receipts. How about this? The first black woman on the Supreme Court ever. How about $16 billion to support HBCUs and $153 billion and counting in student loans forgiven? Police and criminal justice reform? Joe and Kamala did that too. Banning chokeholds for federal officers. They also pardoned thousands convicted of marijuana possession and made historic investments in our K-12 public schools. And remember getting those checks to help with groceries and help to make rent and mortgage payments? Yeah, Joe and Kamala did that too. And yeah, you might not have heard a lot of this because Joe and Kamala don't run their mouths like that other guy. They just get things done.
I'm just not a fan of Kamala Harris. I don't know who her running mate's going to be.
I think her chances are very good. If Biden selected her as a VP, he knew that she could eventually be a president.
Kamala, I want to hear more from her. She's a lot younger. She's very intelligent.
I think they knew that Biden shouldn't have reran, but, you know, they try to force it.
She's been out there and doing her stuff and everything and speaking at colleges and doing a lot of things, but I just haven't heard it enough.
I don't mean to brag or anything, but I don't have to worry about who my husband's voting for. And I think that makes him even more of an attractive person.
Don't let that silk press and giggle fool you. VP Harris is going to sweep. She's going to sweep Donald Trump in these debates. I will say this, Donald Trump is a very smooth liar. And you may think, oh, no, like, I will never fall. I've been to political speeches, like, in person. I've also seen John Ossoff. Very beautiful in person. I know there was, like, a whole thing of, like, thirst edits of him, but, like, he's very handsome in person. I'll give him that. They're very convincing. They're very much like, oh, they give you so much hope. If you had no prior knowledge, maybe you're not on social media, maybe you're not fact-checking, maybe you're stuck only watching Fox News, and you watch a Donald Trump debate, and you're like, yeah, I believe him. Like, he's really trying to separate himself right now from, like, the alt-right image that he's been given the past 8 years. I never even heard of Project 2025 and Heritage Foundation. Who are they? You know, like, you just said a couple months ago that that's going to be your plan. When you get to office, you said the Heritage Foundation was phenomenal. Brings me back to when his stance is on C-19 vaccines, and then he gets interviewed by Candace Owens. He's like, actually, I never said that. I really believe in the vaccine, and I think everyone should get it. And she's, like, scrambling on what to say next. So I think the Democratic Party has really been on their P's and Q's, like, I don't even see that image, like, circling the internet anymore of Donald Trump in front of that flag that people are like, I'm going to vote for him now because this is phenomenal. You have the right to vote for whoever you want to vote for, but talk about a team. Like, the Democrats are not playing.
Good morning, my neighbors! Hey, fuck you! Yes! Yes! Fuck you too!
Y'all gonna wake up to the bullshit. I really want to know when the fuck y'all gonna wake up. The media ain't for us. Okay? All this bullshit about, oh, Biden and Kamala Harris are a disaster. Their polling numbers. Shut the fuck up. The polling numbers is based off of perception that the media don't want you to see. They're talking about there's a new Biden in town. No. Biden and Kamala haven't been doing anything new. Y'all finally just reporting on it because you realize that your cash cow Trump is going to fucking jail. Y'all wanted his ass back in office so that you can cause commotion and chaos because he's a chaos agent. And it's good for clicks, it's good for views, it's good for engagement. But on the backs of the American people, y'all don't give a fuck about our lives. But let me tell you something. Let me tell you how fucking bullshit these motherfucking media people are. It's interesting that people keep saying, where's Kamala, because they don't want to talk about what Kamala Harris is doing. You know, Kamala Harris went to France, right? She's negotiating a cybersecurity deal. She's rekindling our international relations. She's working on COVID. They don't go over none of that. Instead, they talk about how Kamala Harris bought pots and fucking pans. Does anybody remember Laura Italiano, a New York Post journalist who was forced to lie on Madam Vice President, who quit her job because they made her write a bullshit-ass lie on Kamala Harris saying that she was handing out her book to immigrant children? Remember? Here's the post. Here's the story. This isn't nothing new. Y'all really thought because, oh, you know, we're breaking ceilings, we're doing that. Kamala Harris is a black woman. These white men are upset because Kamala Harris is on pace of breaking more ties than any vice president in history. She has broken 26 ties, putting her the third highest vice president to ever do so, meaning she's outperforming her white counterparts, these white mediocre men. And the crazy thing is y'all holding her to this most impossible standards that y'all didn't even hold Pence to. But the thing that y'all keep saying, where's Kamala? What is she doing? Look at what she's doing. She's out here fighting for maternal health. It's interesting that y'all want to give black women a pat on the back, but y'all don't give a fuck about them dying on the operating table. But Kamala Harris is doing a whole maternal health week for black women. But fuck her. But she's anti-black too? What the fuck? Y'all want to sit here and act like she wasn't the reason the American Rescue Plan passed and y'all got y'all $1,400 stimulus check? The money was spent. Y'all gonna sit here and act like she isn't the reason why the Inflation Act passed? Lowering the cost of prescription drugs and healthcare? Kamala did that. Fuck you.
I am so excited about this plot twist in politics. This is so exciting. It's almost like watching TV. Who could have ever foreseen this? I am so with Kamala. She's the right person for the job, but the irony of a prosecutor running against a felon is crazy to me. It just can't get better than this. Who wrote this? Shonda Rhimes? I love this, but I am so on the Kamala train. Come on, grab your ticket, put your blue heart in the comments if you're on the Kamala train. Our next stop, the White House.
Congressman Himes, are you prepared to endorse Kamala Harris?
So I'm a big Harris fan, and I've been sort of arguing in the background as people said, well, what comes next? I've been arguing that, the vice presidency is a job that does not allow you to shine, right? And when you are vice president, every word you utter has to be consistent with the beliefs of the president or you're not doing your job. I'm a big believer that Harris, when she is sort of freed from that obligation, her numbers are likely to rise and rise dramatically. Now, I was out mowing my lawn 3 hours ago when I got the news. And so I haven't crafted a statement. I haven't sort of checked in with leadership. I do things in concert with my colleagues and that sort of thing. But I can tell you right now that I am a big Harris fan. And I think that Harris at the top of the ticket, an African-American woman, a prosecutor up against a, convicted felon. I could get pretty excited about that ticket.
Kamala Harris. Word on these Twitter streets is that some people are taking to using perpetuated rumors about her track record as a prosecutor as the reason why they will not vote for her in November. And no lie, I've seen some of the comments and it's really giving but her emails. Now, I wouldn't be a non-biased conduit of information if I told you who to vote for. But I also wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't debunk some of these ridiculous claims. So let's do it. Today, let's start with the widespread claim that Kamala Harris put a ton of black men in jail. Now, first things first, let's be clear about what Kamala Harris's job was when she was a prosecutor back in California. She neither penned or interpreted the law. That, my friends, was left up to policymakers and judges. Her job was to take a criminal case, look at the facts and the circumstances, and determine which sentence to recommend in return for the defendant's guilty plea. Now, her first criminal justice job was actually a homicide prosecutor in Alameda County in California, a state that is under a 3 strikes law. So right there, that's already 2 things that she can't control. She neither writes the law nor interprets it. And the laws in California tied her hand, saying that if a convicted criminal had 2 strikes, she had no choice but to send them into prison. So since we now know that it wasn't VP Kamala Harris literally going in people's houses and arresting them, throwing them into prison, let's talk about what she did do to unpin some of these harsh laws in California. Kamala Harris, being personally against the death penalty, became the district attorney in San Francisco in 2004 and stood on business. So much so that she actually refused to seek the death penalty for a man who was convicted of shooting a police officer. And then in 2005, she did something that actually helped to keep black men out of jail. Because California was still dealing with the remnants of the war on drugs. Yeah, so she started this program called Back on Track that allowed first-time offenders, including both users and dealers, to get a high school diploma through a program instead of doing prison time. After that, she went back to work on that 3 strikes law, attempting to change the whole law by mandating that her office in San Francisco only charge for a 3rd strike felony if the felony was violent or serious, which was huge because those of us from California know that 3rd felony, regardless of if it was violent or non-violent, usually meant 25 to life. She also had this anti-truancy program because some of y'all were skipping school. And what she did was, instead of putting you in juvie, she got with your parents and tried to figure out why you were missing school. You know what happened? Yeah, there was a 33% increase in school attendance. And of the 25 cases that she did have to prosecute, none of them ended in jail time. I say all that to say this. Do some heart searching. Because just a little bit of research would have told you that the rumors you've been hearing are not a thing. But somehow too many people are willing to repeat them. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, but I'm willing to bet that the majority of the reason you don't want to vote for her is not because of a record that you hadn't studied, but because she is a reminder that the most disrespected demographic in this country be about that life. Now, again, I'm not telling you who to vote for because that would be irresponsible, but I would ask you to think about why you really don't want her in that office.
And for Kamala to be fine and came from an HBCU, and I mean, she was the DA, she wasn't the cop on the scene.
Yeah.
I know the organizations of the judicial system. I know the levers.
Yeah.
Police get you. They put the crime on you. Then it goes to the DA, which she was.
Right.
And she prosecute what the police said you do. Now it's your lawyer to say, no, this didn't happen. This did happen, and that's where it is. What do they want her to do? See, this is a problem I have with people. We're going to be consistent about being mad. Be consistent about what choices she have. A lot of us right now work for goddamn organizations that doesn't have our best interests, but you have to do your job. When she was confronted with what the charges is, and that's what it is, that's her job to prosecute the charges that it is. I don't know where it is with it. And then secondly, there's nothing I can do about what she did yesterday. All I can do is about what she did, what she's gonna do today and tomorrow. And that goes for everybody.
So I see a clip is going viral where Amanda Seales is talking about her lack of support for Vice President Kamala Harris. And be clear, I don't care if she supports her or not. She's entitled to do that. She's entitled to her opinion. However, I have to push back on any notion that Vice President Kamala Harris erases or marginalizes systemic racism, especially as vice president, when there is ample evidence to the contrary. So I'm just going to lay out where Amanda makes points about things that need to be addressed and where Vice President Kamala Harris stands on that.
We have shooters that are going into places and killing people because of their race. And then we're not calling it domestic terrorism.
What we know from the intelligence community, one of the greatest threats to our national security is domestic terrorism manifested by white supremacists.
We have an entire culture of police that are killing black people and getting away with it because the law says they can.
I was, as a United States Senator, a co-author of the original George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And as Vice President of the United States, we demand that Congress pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. Joe Biden will sign it. And we should not delay, and we will not be denied. It is non-negotiable.
We have a country that was 1,000% built on the foundation of racism that now legislators are trying to pretend didn't happen and are getting that through and doing it on an education level.
Black history is American history. Living history. Breathing history, history that we create every day, and history that we then must teach and celebrate. A history that helps us to understand how the past has influenced the present and potentially our future. And let us all be clear. We will not, as a nation, build a better future for America by trying to erase America's past.
And on a DEI level, you cannot, as the second in line to the highest form of office in this country, make a message on hope.
And so these are issues that we must confront, and it does not help to heal our country, to unify us as a people, to ignore the realities of that.
So, what have we learned? If you care about what the vice president has to say about certain issues, maybe you should start paying attention to her when she speaks instead of taking a headline and running with it. But more on this Saturday. My show, The Reese Colbert Show, Sirius XM Urban View Channel 126, 3 to 4 p.m. Tune in.
Man, she ain't Michelle Obama. But
Jamaica. They done let a motherfucking black woman through the door, bitch. Hey, I don't give a fuck if she was promoting cheese. Bitch, I'm voting for a hoe. You got my vote, bitch. Oh, shit, we about to have y'all motherfuckers in line.
Joe Biden needs to resign. I'm like, you know who gets a job if he quits, right? He quits. The black lady gets a job. Oh, you think you angry now? And I'm fine with Kamala Harris as president. You know why? Because she's a black woman. People are like, that's all you need? That's all I need. I've been listening to black women all my life, and they've never been wrong. Not even once. One time I thought a black woman was wrong, and 2 years later I was like, I'll be damned. She was like, I told you 2 years ago. You think we have any problem out of Putin if we had a black woman as president? One phone call to Russia. Don't let me have to come over there. Putin sit his little short ass down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean nothing. I just forgot myself for a minute.
Now, don't get me wrong. I, too, am very excited about Kamala Harris likely being the Democratic presidential nominee. However, we still live in America, where black women continue to be the least protected, represented, and supported group in our country. So if we have any shot at doing this, it needs to be more than just a social media moment. It needs to be more than just memes or posting pictures. We need to get out and vote. Period.
And one more thing. The Democratic Party, if you still on the Democratic plantation of black folks, I don't know what to say. Kamala Harris can't win. Since Joe Biden dropped out, Kamala Harris is not beating Donald Trump at all. So, you're doomed. Kamala Harris can't win, and she already said she's not going to do anything for black people. You know, so if you want me to do something for black people specifically, no, that's what she said. So she's not the candidate for us. For one, she's not even considered black. And for two, she don't have the best interest for us anyway. Neither does these candidates do. The only person I could say that probably would be a good choice is RFK. But other than that, no, it's not going to work.
So we all know that Kamala Harris sucks at her job, not because she's a woman, not because she's black, but because she simply just sucks at her job. This is what the ladies at The View had to say about it.
Scrutinized vice president in history because she's running with the oldest president running for president.
And she's also a black woman.
But I think you have to be able to fairly critique the vice president of the United States without just saying it's the color of their skin or the fact she's a woman.
But it is part of it.
What makes you say that?
Well, we're in the United States of America.
So guys, let's break this down. Sunny here on The View believes that Kamala Harris is being unfairly scrutinized because she is a black woman. Mind you, Kamala Harris was elected as Vice President of the United States because she is a black woman. And Sonny, show me the law where we're not able to scrutinize somebody because they're black. Seriously, Sonny, the alternative is we literally ignore her mistakes because she's black. The blatant racism that you spew every day is a cancer on the airwaves.
Kamala Harris is combating the angry black woman stereotype.
I first found out about Kamala Harris whether she was in Senate or Congress. I don't remember which. I'm sorry. Someone will comment it. I used to geek out on C-SPAN, everywhere I could find her videos and see her when she was in litigation in those chambers. She was in the Senate hearings, I believe. She was one of the most ruthless, intelligent, wise, aggressive people in the room at all times. She held no punches and she let no one get off for anything. And when she got into office, I was really shocked because I was like, what has she become now? Is she drinking? Like, what is this caricature she's doing? This actually makes a lot of sense now. I don't think that Joe Biden's gonna make it through another term. I also think it's very telling that the Democrats would run him because literally anyone would win against him. And I always hold out hope for black women. Like, that's what I'm gonna do always. Also, go watch the rest of that video. It was great. Follow her. We're on Black Girl TikTok, so follow. And she's beautiful, so. What I'm hoping is that, well, I'm not hoping this, but I don't see Joe making it through the rest of his term. What if she comes back to the person that she was? Now she's already set up this little fun image of a wine mom.
And it is a false choice to suggest that you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and we need an assault weapons ban. I support the Second Amendment, and we need universal background checks. I support the Second Amendment, and we need red flag laws. Black women are 3 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. Native women twice as likely. Rural women 1.5 times more likely. And it literally does not have to be this way. Over 80% of these cases are preventable.
Yes.
So one of the things that I started to focus on when I became vice president is I was curious about what's going on in terms of giving women the support they need in terms of postpartum care.
Yes.
And I looked at our country and realized that for women on Medicaid, only 3 states in our nation had extended postpartum coverage from 2 months to 12 months. Only 3 states. So I am not above shaming people.
Mm-hmm.
And I then issued a challenge to all of these states. Extend postpartum care to 12 months. As of today, 46 states have signed on.
Yes.
Right.
I love that.
Beautiful. There's so much about what I do that's not here. And about our young leaders and making sure that I want to do everything I can to make sure you can do everything you want. So that's it. So, I'm carrying on your leadership, right? So this is kind of like a two-way relationship. I'm being the lead. So I feel wow.
So Kamala Harris has a record as a prosecutor, which is often misunderstood and oversimplified. It's really interesting to me, too, how the GOP will often create practices and sustain practices that are very anti-Black, and how we have the largest criminal justice system in the world, and all of a sudden now people want to say, oh, but look what this Black woman is doing, or this mixed woman is doing to discredit her. I don't think a lot of people are really for Black and brown bodies, generally speaking, but I do think that Kamala Harris has tried to reach people and reform, and I think that we really should look at that when it comes to this next election. So that's pretty much all I have to say about this for now. If you would like for me to do a separate video on Kamala Harris, let me know down below. I do have some other views about her that I would like to address separately. Thank you so much for listening to Books and Looks TV. I'll see you next time.
Oh, a woman can be president. Of that I'm sure.